I was originally brought to Portland to speak at the Jefferson High School last evening, an event that was canceled upon my arrival at the airport the night before last. I was told that the school district decided to cancel my presentation at Jefferson High School because of my position that homosexuality amongst African and African American people is a mental illness. That is a position that I maintain and that I affirm. However, I would also say that although I do not agree or support homosexuality, I can still support and affirm the humanity and human rights of anyone who practices that lifestyle. In other words, I can separate the behavior from the human being who practices it. I believe that no matter what type of mental illness a person has, they still have a right to basic human respect and integrity. And so my position on homosexuality, in my opinion, should not in any way have led to the cancellation of an event that was designed for me to talk about issues affecting the education of African American children in general and black boys in particular. Black boys are suffering from a greater human rights abuse than all the homosexuals in the world put together. So why would you dare try to put your sexual agenda as a priority over and above the life of our black boys? And I thought it was trifling that they would do something like that because the subject matter was not homosexuality. And as someone who speaks for schools and school districts all across the country, rarely do I ever discuss my position on homosexuality in public venue. I do discuss it in private venues with the African community, but I don't do so in public venue. So if I'm not coming to talk about that topic, why is my event being canceled when we know that only 1 out of every 4 black boys is graduating from high school? We know that black boys have the worst college retention rate. We know that 2 out of every 4 black boys is under some form of supervision by way of the criminal justice system. The over special education and the over ADHD diagnosing and the over medicalization of black boys, in my opinion, is the greatest human rights abuse taking place on the planet right now. And it bothers me that they would use an opportunity for me to engage the teachers who teach our children and engage the parents who are raising our children and co-opt that event and try to turn it into some sort of a homophobic protest when I am not homophobic because I fear no man, gay or straight. So how can I be homophobic when I do therapy with homosexual children and adults? So there's nothing homophobic about me. I simply choose not to affirm your lifestyle. And that is a right that the Creator gave me when I was born into this world. And I don't have to justify it or explain it. And if you disagree with me, you have a right to disagree with me. As I said last night, there's differences between Muslims and Christians. But the Muslim can still respect the Christian's belief, even though he doesn't agree with it. The Christian can still respect the Muslim's belief, even though they don't agree with it. Okay? So why would we have an issue with individuals expressing their opinion when we all have a right to our own? I want to say this. I do not believe that the cancellation of my event had anything whatsoever to do with my position on homosexuality. I want to be clear. I don't think it had anything to do whatsoever with the homosexual agenda. I think there were heterosexual racists behind the cancellation of my event. I believe that they did not want me to come into this school system and speak of the miseducation machine as it's taking place in Portland. And they simply used the sexual agenda as a cover or a cloak to prevent me from getting a thorough understanding of what's being done to our children in Portland. So that really wasn't about homosexuality. That was about stopping me from empowering our people with the necessary information so they could fight back against miseducation, not homosexuality. They simply used that as the cloak and dagger to hide their agenda.
This goes right in line with that pipeline.
Yes.
The pipeline from school. We talked a little bit on that.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. In my work, and I've been at this since the age of 18, I've been at this since undergrad, grad school, so forth and so on. And I've uncovered in my work that there's 5 stages in the miseducation of black boys. First, there is the miseducation itself, which is designed to teach our young men to hate themselves, to love European culture, and if possible, to effeminize him. That's the goal of stage 1. Stage 2, if they cannot break the spirit of the African-American boy, they then move to psychiatric medication. Now we're going to force you to acquiesce to the miseducation machine and the educational oppression by giving you the medication. Because what the drugs do is it arrests the brain. It forces the brain to do what the spirit don't want to do. If they're not successful with medication, they move to juvenile incarceration. Now they're handcuffing our young men, putting them in juvenile detention facilities, putting them in jails and prisons, and so forth and so on. Okay? When the black boy gets out of juvenile detention, out of prison, he's psychologically frustrated. This is what they want. They want him to be hopeless. They want him to be reckless. They want him to be violent. And so now his pants are sagging. He don't want to work. He don't want to go back to school because he has learned for himself that this society is designed against my best interests. That anger, that passion, that rage takes us to stage 5, which is premature extermination. Stage 5 is when they set out to end the life of black males, usually at the hands of other black males, by way of the cocaine that the CIA brings into our community and by way of the guns that the various gun manufacturers bring into our community. So that's the rite of passage that the American social order has created for African American boys. And nearly every boy we have is at one stage or another in that process. And it's our job to try to fight to remove them from that process. And I would also say that the only way we're going to stop the miseducation machine or psychoacademic holocaust is to build our own schools. So this way our boys don't have to be subject to the miseducation, psychiatric medication, juvenile incarceration, subsequent frustration, and then physical extermination.
Some of the concepts that you and the things that you were talking about last night, these are some of the things that we come here in Portland, try to bring forward.
Yes, sir.
And whatever you're trying to do, because I feel on the God.
Yes, sir.
And it's not the 4% of us here.
Yes, sir.
And 96% of Europeans.
Yeah.
They have Europeans riding around on bicycles naked.
Okay.
They got on the train the other day in their underwear.
Okay.
And I think it's disrespect to the Afro-American people. We call them more than Afro-American people.
Yes.
Because our forefathers is Jesus, Abraham,
Yes,
Moses.
sir.
This is our forefathers.
Yes, sir.
And when I went back to Lot, white turned back and turned to a pillar of salt. And when you talk about sodomite, that's homosexuality.
Right.
And if any of our brothers deal with homosexuality, that's not their understanding. That's the concept of the Europeans.
Exactly. It's a propagated experience.
The whole world was called Asia one time. And when the whole world was called Asia, you had things done as Asiatic.
Yes, sir.
And that's so rough, brother. It's rough here.
And the one thing I would say to that is this. When we talk about the sexual agenda, what we're really talking about is cultural imperialism. No culture has a right to dictate to another how to eat, how to live, how to worship, how to practice, how to build family. If you support that way of life, that's the right of your culture. But you don't have a right to come into my culture and tell me how I must live or what I must accept. See, our issue is not with how Europeans choose to live and date. That's not our issue. Our issue is about governing our own house, our own community. We have certain rules that we have lived by for millions of years. You don't come after millions of years and tell me that I have to engage in something that has always been considered taboo amongst my ancestors. See, people have to respect other people's cultural paradigms. You see, there's certain things that we stand on as Asiatic, as African, as Moorish people, as indigenous folk. That's our paradigm. You have your European paradigm. You have your Arab paradigm. You have your East Indian paradigm. You have your Asian paradigm. And you have a right to it. But don't come and tell me that I am wrong because I'm standing on a paradigm that disagrees with your behavioral practices.
I need you to do something for me. Because last night, Portland did not get a chance to hear you.
Okay.
Only a few of us, and that was because the Nation of Islam opened up the door, because they shut you down. Can you let the public know some of the things that you spoke about last night that you're trying to do here in Portland to be conducive to the growth and development of us as a people?
Yes, indeed. One of the things that we want to do here in Portland, as we're doing around the country, is we want to build the National Independent Black Parent Association. National Independent Black Parent Association, which means we need to build the Portland Independent Black Parent Association. I want to organize all African people in the city. Whether you have children or not is irrelevant because they're all our children. And we want to organize them into 7 committees. The Special Ed Committee to fight against special ed fraud and exploitation. The School Discipline Committee to fight against the unfair suspensions and expulsions of African children, especially our boys. The United States Department of Education released a report nearly 2 years ago that said African American boys are suspended and expelled at 4 times the rate of white boys for the exact same offenses, even when they are of the same socioeconomic status. So we got to have a serious school discipline program because it is the excessive punitive discipline practices that is leading so many of our boys to drop out of school. If you're suspending me every month, then you're telling me I'm not wanted here, so I'm going to stop coming, which is why I maintain that there's no such thing as a school dropout rate. Our kids don't drop out. That's putting the responsibility on a child. There is no dropout. There's a push out rate. They get pushed out by the way that they are treated by a predominantly white middle class female base with a feminist agenda. The school culture is not conducive to a masculine black boy. It is hard to succeed in school in America, public, private, charter, or parochial, if you are an upstanding, self-respecting masculine black boy. Schools are designed for the effeminate, not for the masculine. And when you are masculine, they will diagnose you. ADHD, conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, emotional disturbance, disruptive behavior disorder, intermittent explosive disorder. All these labels they then came up with to marginalize black boys who refuse to accept white supremacy. The next committee, school finance, to investigate where the money's going. This one is going to be critical because we're going to track the dollars. Who's getting this money that our kids are supposed to get? Who's getting the No Child Left Behind money? Who's getting the Title I money? Who's getting the Reach for America money? Who's getting the special ed money? Billions of dollars going to people who's supposed to be servicing our kids who are not. Then we're going to have a parent advocacy committee because no parent should ever go to a meeting alone. You should always go with someone else. Never go to a school meeting by yourself because they will manipulate you. They will distort your words. They will lie and misrepresent you. So we always want a team of parents to go with a parent so they feel comfortable to defend their position. But what happens is we show up to the school by ourselves and then they come in with the school mafia, 15 school members to intimidate you by the amount of people present. So now you start backing off your position because you outnumbered. So what we have to do is send a team with every parent to protect them from what's happening. And I'm going to personally train the parents in the parent advocacy committee to make sure they understand what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do. We're going to be very meticulous in everything that we do. Then there's going to be a homeschool committee because a lot of our parents are ready to pull their children out the school. And so we need a homeschool committee to help them educate, give them curricular support, to assess the work that they are doing, and so forth and so on. And so the homeschool committee is going to be that transitional program that parents can put their children in until such time that I build the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RBG Academy for African Children, where we're going to teach science. All sciences, by the way, because I'm a Pan-Africanist, but guess what? The Moorish science need to be taught. So that's going to be in our curriculum. The science of the Nation of Islam will be in our curriculum. The science of the Nawapians, the gods on earth, the Hebrews, that's going to be there because we want to give them a universal education. They'll never get that in the public school system. We got to give them that. And education, properly done, at the conclusion of the process, the child can be nothing other than a god or a goddess if it's done right. Nothing other than that. So if they come out as anything other than that, then they were miseducated. Because there's no way you can say you were properly educated and you are not able to function politically or economically in a way that is conducive to your own society. European education is designed to make sure we fail. That's the purpose of schooling in any oppressive community. You have never seen a children go through any process controlled by the enemy that comes out to work in their best interest. So you have a curriculum for control, and you have an instruction for insubordination. It is not designed to teach you to take power back from the power holders. Last committee, social committee. We need a committee to support all of our single parents, our single father parents, our single mother parents. We want to put on positive programs, lunches, trips, teas, social, just to give them a break from the struggle of raising their children. I can tell you, brothers, one of the things that's motivated me so much to do this and to build the school is I've been in so many telephone conversations with mothers who literally cry on the phone. This miseducation thing is affecting the quality of life of our people. Crying, Dr. Umar, I don't know what to do. I done lost my job. They trying to take my kids. They forcing me to put them on medicine. They want them all in special ed, and I don't know what to do. When you keep hearing that pain like that, it says, come on, I got to get up and do something more than what I was doing. So the Parents Association is designed to protect our children until we have our own schools. I don't believe that we can ever make white people do what they have made up their minds not to do. You cannot make a middle-class white woman care about a black boy. It is impossible. Okay? She is not a natural stakeholder in his success. And because she's not a natural stakeholder in his success, she should not even be allowed to partake in his education. In therapy, if you don't care about the client, you can't help him. School is the same way. If you don't care about them 30 kids, you cannot teach because the child picks up the fact that you don't care. And then because they know you are disengaged from them, they disengage from you, but then they get blamed for not learning when the problem was the instructor wasn't prepared to teach them. The number one predictor of success in the classroom is not how much money the schools get, how much money the teachers make, whether the child grew up poor, whether he got a teenage mother. That has nothing to do with classroom success. The number one predictor, and this is their research, not mine, theirs. The number one predictor of success in the class is the teacher's belief in the child. Nothing else. Nothing else. So don't tell me they're not learning because you need more money. Don't tell me they're not learning because the books are too old. Don't tell me they're not learning because the school buildings are too... No, they're not learning because the teachers who you hired to teach them could care less if they did.
Dr. Johnson. So what I'm hearing you say is there's a myth that there's learning disabilities. Really what we see in the effect of what's going on with our children is teaching disabilities.
Yes.
And there's a psychological and a psychosocial system here that is designed to allow or to suppress our children's learning. And in that event, it sounds like you have a system that is set up that if we engage, if we properly engage and take what you set out, that we can start to regain and uplift our children.
Yes, without question.
Sounds like the root here is it's not the parents, it's the children that help affect what's going on in our society.
Without question. And I would add to that this. One of the things we have to make sure we give our children is a firm belief in themselves. An unquenching level of self-confidence and motivation. Everyone needs that in order to make it in this world, especially in a racist world. But by putting them in public school, they get their self-esteem destroyed by the white teachers. So by the time they done with school, even with a diploma, psychologically they destroyed because they've been conditioned over 12 years to believe that they were not capable of anything. So when we look at sagging pants and when we look at brothers not working and we look at brothers not want to do nothing with their lives, you have to look at the childhood conditioning in the classroom that convinced him he couldn't be anything other than what he is. So you have to look at how miseducation is a weapon of mass destruction. It's a weapon of mass destruction that's destroying the psychological health of black boys and then turns around and then locks them up after you set them up to go to jail. So you got this school to prison pipeline, okay, where the school is actually a part of the prison system. It's not separate. It prepares you for prison. Remember now, if a black boy can't read by the time he finishes the 4th grade, he's not likely to learn. even if he stays in school, by the time he graduates? What kind of a system, if I can't read by the time I finish the 5th, I still got 6th grade, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. But the research says, if I can't read when I finish the 5th, I'm not likely to be taught for them other 7 years. What kind of system is that? That could push a child through for 7 and not make sure he's literate. But they count on that because the average reading level of a black male inmate in America is 3rd grade. The average reading level of a black male inmate in America is the 3rd grade. That means that they ain't been taught a day past 3rd. But if you look at the school record, they've been in school up until the 10th, the 11th, the 12th. So how can he still be on the 3rd grade level? Because these white women, their responsibility is to make sure he's not functional in the society as anything other than a prisoner when he's done. See, the white woman's job is to miseducate. And then the white man's job is to incarcerate. So they work together to maintain the American social order with the black male at the bottom. The school is nothing more than the waiting room for the jail. That's all it is. And the schools are controlled by the state. And the state builds the prison. And every state in America spends more money on prison construction than school construction. And the black male incarceration percentage in all 50 states, from Oregon to Alabama, Pennsylvania to Michigan, is at least 3 times the population in jail that we are in the community. For example, in Pennsylvania, black people are 10% of the population, but we are 50% of the inmates. That is true for each of the 50 states. So you have 50 states. Every single one, the black male population in jail is at least 3 times higher than it is out. And in some states, is as great as 20 times higher. And you mean to tell me that there's no deliberate design to this? Designed to remove black men out the American social order because our economic labor is no longer necessary for this machine to function? Because they now have the Latino and the East Indian and the Arab and the Mexican coming in to take our jobs and push us to jail as a form of economic extermination.
My brother, can you talk about the relationship between brother and sister and child? Because last night you talked about that strongly.
The first institution in the community is the family. If the family doesn't work, then nothing else will. So we have to make sure that that relationship between a black man and a black woman is so tight that the American social order can't come in and divide us and use us against each other, because that's exactly what they've been doing. The whole welfare system is designed to replace the black man with the system as the black woman's husband. So the man ain't there, but the judge is your husband. The social worker is your husband. The man who gives out the welfare check, he's your husband. The man who gives you the Section 8 housing, he's your husband. So what they've done in America is they've created a situation where the black woman doesn't need the black man for nothing. Even if she wants your money, she doesn't have to ask you. She can go and have the white man dig in your pockets and take it for her. So you got this relationship between the black man and the black woman where if the sister is not careful, she can be manipulated into being used as a secret weapon of oppression against her own man. We are the only men whose women do not have to come and consult with us before they do anything else. This is a direct outgrowth of slavery, and it was engineered. That's why in America, black women make more money than black men. That's not true for no other group. Black women have more education than black men. That's not true for any other group. We're not faulting our sisters or knocking them in no way. And I want my sisters to understand that. We're just analyzing this system, this structure that's been created that empowers the sister, disempowers the man, and now convinces her that he's worthless and she don't need him and she'll be better off without him. The sisters have to understand that what's being done to black men isn't being done by black men. It's being done by the invisible hand of white supremacy. But a lot of our women can't see this onslaught. And as a result of that, they buy into the mindset that says the reason you fail and I succeed is because I am more concerned about my future than you are. And nothing could be further from the truth. And the black man has to make sure we don't blame the black woman for her excess education or income. Let's use that strategically. If she's making the money, so be it. Pass that money off to us so we can build the institutions. It's not automatically a problem that you make more money than me. It's not automatically a problem that you have more education than me if we can still work together. But if you buy into the mindset of the dominant society as to the reasons why you're doing better than me. Then it becomes a problem when you ingest the white supremacy Kool-Aid and start believing in the mythology of the black man based on his white supremacy.
One of the secret weapons in this quiet bar is what they're doing with the food that they're Can you talk on that a little bit?
Yes, indeed. The Food and Drug Administration is a criminal operation. The Food and Drug Administration is responsible for determining which medicines and which foods are healthy for human consumption. Drugs and food. And in America, there's a thin line between a drug and a food because a lot of the chemicals in food are drugs. So there's really no fine line there. But what they've done over the years is that they have manipulated the definition of what's considered natural, raw, and organic to the point now that you can buy something that has a 100% organic label on the bag, but yet 40% of the contents of that product are not organic, are toxic, and are poison. So they're using the definitions. And what is the definition of power? It's the ability to do what? Define reality and make the victims accept it. This is organic. You buy into it. You accept it. This is freedom. You buy into it. You accept it. This is normal, healthy behavior. You buy into it. You accept it. We have to come up with our own definitions. You never accept the definitions of reality that the enemy gives you, because any definition he gives you is designed to confuse you to your reality. See, confusion is the weapon of oppression. If I can get you to not understand what's happening, you will stand still until you find out. So you keep confusion going. That's exactly why the CIA brought drugs into the community back in the 60s and 70s to neutralize the black power struggle. They say if we disorganize the community, if we confuse it, they won't have time to fight us. They'll be too busy fighting each other. You see? For example, there's research out there that shows some of the black organizations in our community, these not-for-profits, 501s, not all of them, but some of them, were set up by the FBI to disrupt progressive organizational activities. So when you look in Portland, you probably got a handful of organizations getting funding who were set up by the FBI, and their job is to disrupt anything progressive. We got to recognize half the books written are written by the FBI. Half the magazines written are written by the FBI. Let me give you an example. We all know who David Duke is.
Yeah.
Former Grand Wizard of the KKK, at least in the Southern Division. Do you know that David Duke used to write books on black power under the pen name of, I think it was Muhammad X? Yes, he used to write black power books under the pen name of Muhammad X. Why? Because if I teach you how to deal with me, I can always overcome you because I gave you the strategy. Military science. They are masters of it. And that's why they rule. They're not in charge because they're smarter. They're not in charge because they were birthed by God to rule us. They're in charge because they have mastered psychological science and political science.
Would you say also as an indicator that nutrition or food plays into some of the learning and the ailments that's facing the community?
Very important. What our children digest goes to the brain. What the brain gets, it uses for power. And if it doesn't get the right nutrients, then obviously that can lead to all types of disabilities and things like that within the body. So we definitely have to improve the diet that our children are consuming. But I want to be clear though, changing the diet is for health. It's not going to stop the miseducation machine. A lot of people are under the influence that if you gave every black boy a vegan diet, that would stop the ADHD. No, because he's not being diagnosed with ADHD because he got a problem. He's being diagnosed with ADHD because she don't want to teach him. It has nothing to do with his diet, but we need to improve diet to maintain the health of our young people.
What we're going to do, we're going to close out.
Mm.
We're going to do that by letting the sister say the prayer.
Yes. All right. All right.